conversation, whatever you believe it is, let it be into you. But we're just going to kind of dive into this thing and kind of dissect, and we're going to have a great conversation about cohabitation, whether or not it is considered a relationship builder or breaker. And I'm just going to break it down in street terms. Should you test drive a car before you buy it or not? Your choice. But we're just going to kind of dive into it. So the problem that I believe is that many couples deciding to cohabitate face unanticipated stress and friction due to the lack of communication about household responsibilities, financial management, and personal boundaries. This could lead to dissatisfaction, conflict, and a strain on the relationship. The desired state is a harmonious living situation where both partners feel respected, their responsibilities are clearly defined, and open communication is practiced to address issues and maintain a healthy relationship. While cohabitation before marriage provides an opportunity for couples to deepen their understanding of each other, it also presents unique challenges related to the division of labor, financial management, personal boundaries, and societal expectation. Addressing these issues through open communication, setting mutual expectations, and fostering understanding can significantly enhance the experience and strengthen the relationship. So, as I dive into this, one of the things I want to share with you is a focus statement. I know I skipped it. I'll come back to that after a while. I want to provide a focus statement. And that focus statement, as we get ready to talk about this thing, is that you will never behave consistently in a manner that is inconsistent with your programming. So, gentlemen, the first question that I actually have for you is, what are the critical considerations and potential complexities that a couple should thoroughly examine when contemplating the decision to cohabitate prior to entering into a marital commitment?
One of the things that they got to talk about is who is running the show. And what I mean by that is what are going to be the rules and the dynamics of the house? How is the household going to be structured? Like they have to think about those things when if you have one person in the relationship saying, "Hey, you know what? I'm gonna go in there." I would just say man and woman. All right. So you have a man that's going in and say, "Yeah, you know what? I'm going in there. I'm going to start preparing this cohabitation like a marriage. So I want her to do A, B, and C." And you have her coming in say, "I'm going to come in, start acting like a wifey, and I'm going to do X, Y, and Z." Well, these roles that each person is going to play in the marriage or in the cohabitation needs to be talked about. You have to have those conversations, because if you don't have those conversations and you don't think about and talk about who's going to play what part, who's going to do the dishes, you know what I mean? You're going to have some problems, you know. And if you go in just assuming that this person is going to do that and that person is going to do this, then I think you can start their relationship or their cohabitation off in a bad way. So for me, the critical one of the critical considerations is discussing and having a conversation about who's going to do what in the relationship, in everything, at least when it comes to the day-to-day activities. And yes, at least when it comes to the day-to-day activities of how the actual cohabitation is going to run. I know somebody going to talk about the finances, so I ain't going to talk about that part. But that's what I wanted to talk about. But um, I went with the roles.
So I like the fact that you started with the roles, right? Because this is one of the biggest issues that people talk about today, gender roles, right? And I summed it up by saying your comment was basically who's in charge. And I'm going to leave it as that. So where does the struggle come in at? Where do we draw the line? Where do we make the decision about who's in charge of that particular relationship? Is there an answer? Should there be an answer? Should there be a decision? Is the 50-50 thing is, I mean, help me out with this, man. And I'm
There
not
is
just
an answer.
okay.
There is an answer, but it's up to those two parties to bring their vision or what they want out of the relationship to the conversation, and then through that conversation and probably a series of conversations, they're going to determine whether or not this is a good fit for cohabitation, and possibly even is this a good fit for potential marriage.
I can dig it.
I think if I
Yeah.
could jump in there, I think this is going to be a breaking point for people who can critically think, right? And here's why I say it like that, right? Because some people, some of us are just naive even in the midst of turmoil, right? But the problem comes in is because sometimes you end up with, and this is what you got to consider, what is your ideology of dating versus marriage? Because you have some people who are like, well, don't expect me to do wifely things or husbandly things, and you're not married, right? You hear it a lot from females. If you ain't put a ring on it, don't blah 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 blah. But we live here now, so are we going to be roommates with physical benefits, or are we heading somewhere with this? Because once you move in, all bets are really off. You in the fire, whether you put a ring or a contract to it or not. You are in the fire, and so what happens is you have to, un, unfortunately, you have to remove that I'm in a situationship mindset with somebody. I'm not single till there's a ring on it. Would once you move in, technically you taking on these marital ideologies have to become uh the focal point of coexisting. So I think everything that coach that Unc talked about and everything that he didn't talk about, right? With like the financial piece, like the and if one of y'all had kids, the ideology of parenting, do y'all think the same? What do we believe, and how do we operate as a unit? Because we are technically operating as one, because now we're combining bills, we're combining spaces, we're combining lifestyles. Everything is coming together. So I think where the person who starts thinking critically is going to ask, you know, can I work with this, or can I not work with this? And that'll bring them to a point to where you have to now make that decision if this is something that I can move forward with. Now, there are some dudes out there that get into these cohabitating situationships with people uh to see how much they can benefit from it without having to put a ring on it. And sometimes women, when you move in before you get married, you subconsciously give a man that idea that it takes less commitment to get his husbandly privilege, right, in a relationship. And that comes with more than sex. You show up and say, well, I I don't expect me to cook and do this. We ain't married, but we live together. Somebody got to cook. Somebody, we have to start being responsible now as a unit. So that's how I look at it. It's a slippery slope to jump on.
Okay, so if you don't mind, real quick, give us your key point for considerations, though.
It really is, are you willing to deal with the complacency of where the relationship is at? That's really what my full take is. Are you willing to deal? Because once you move in, do I really need to put a ring on it now? Do I
So,
need to? Hmm.
so what I'm hearing you say is that cohabitating, you're running the risk of no future advancement.
Absolutely.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I got it.
So I may has a point. You are running the risk of no future advancement because you get to see how this person is all the time, every day. Can you deal with this? Is this really what you want to spend the rest of your life with? Is this really what you want to is this really what you want to cover? Really? Is this really what you want? You understand what I'm saying? I will be listening for the majority of this show because I made the horrible decision of moving a girlfriend in with me long ago, and I vowed never to do that again. You understand what I'm saying? A lot of okay, this is me going off on a tangent, but it's going to be a small one. A lot of what we see are men being homosexuals, but there are a lot of women out there that are homosexuals too. There are a lot of women out there that are looking for just something. You understand what I'm saying? So that is why I vowed to never do that unless I knew that I had a future with this person. And we are going to have a really, really deep conversation about what it is going to be. We have to. And I think that is the part that's lost. People aren't conversing about it. They're just doing it. And then they wonder why everything is messing up. You understand what I'm saying?
I
So
do.
I'm gonna shut up.
No. I do need you to explain something one time because you use a term. I want to make sure that everybody understand what the term homosexual means.
It is a person, male or female, who is with you simply to have a roof over their head. That is it.
I did not know that that was a term.
That is a thing. And you know what's funny? I learned it on YouTube.
Yeah, me too.
Me
I
too.
learned it
Today,
on YouTube.
I was today years old when I
Today.
learned that. Right. But you said something. You said that you brought up marriage, kind of glided over. You said you wouldn't do it at a situation unless, not unless. So let me go back. You mentioned that you've done that before, right? And then I was looking at the chat, and Michelle Ray has said something about, are we dating to marry, or are we dating to marry? So in your situation, were you dating to marry or were you dating? And then my follow on is this: with the cohabitation, and we may get to it down the road. So if we do, coach, then let me know and we won't go to it. But if you are planning on getting married anyway, if the cohabitation is not what you think it should be, are you going to call off the wedding anyway? Like, are you
Absolutely.
going to get married regardless? You know what I mean? So, not necessarily right now, but that was just a follow-on question in general, but more so, the first part of that question.
To answer your question, Unc, I was just dating. I was just dating. She had got kicked out of her. She was living with her sister. She had got kicked out, and I felt sorry for her because she was going to be out on the street. And like a goofy dude, I decided to bring her into my place. And it went downhill from there because for some strange reason, she thought that she should have a say so over something that she didn't put a dime into. You not paying for nothing. You don't run nothing. I brought you in here because I felt sorry for you, and you were supposed to be doing what you were supposed to do to get where you needed to go, and actually have your own spot. You weren't. Nah, you're not about to come in here and mooch off of me, and that's legitimately what it was. And I had to say, hey, um, what are we doing? Like I legitimately, we had to have the conversation. I'm like, what are we doing? You understand what I'm saying? Because from the looks of things, you really think that you gonna stay here for a expanded period of time, and you are not doing anything to put the thought in my brain to make me want to put a ring on your finger to build something bigger. You just here. So what are we doing? And when she couldn't answer that question and tried to deflect and make it seem like I was being a I'm trying. I don't want to curse,
But
but she was trying to make it seem like I was being something that I wasn't. And I'm like, man, that is not the case. Look, I like you, and I was using the L word back then too. Like I legitimately want to. I want to see something come from this, but you are not showing me why I should. So why are you even here? You need to make a couple phone calls, and you need to get on your feet. You understand what I'm saying? Because you are not about to mooch off of me. You understand what I'm saying? You are not about to mooch off of me. And in-house, whatever, that's not payment because it is important, but it ain't special. I can get it from anybody. What are you doing for me? Because I'm doing this for you. You are under my covering. You understand what I'm saying? I brought you in here because I see something in you, but you are not reciprocating. So why are you here? And if that is the case, you need to beat it. I will call whoever you need to call. I will help you pack whatever you need to pack. But you are not about to do this with me. That is not happening. No. So figure it
But
out.
before Roland knocks this thing out the park, because you know he ready. I can see him. I can see him lined up now. But I get, because y'all brought up something that, depending on the state you live in, I don't know every state's laws, right? It gets tricky because once I move you into my spot and you start getting mail in my spot in Texas on that 31st day, I have
You
to
become a
legally
resident.
evict you. So now
And
you
common law marriage is in effect.
and common, yep. So now getting rid of you because it ain't working becomes more complicated. I see your face, coach. But now, because it's a legal thing now, so I can't.
Coach
You
say
get
he
on my
changing the
nerve. I gotta
laws.
get right. And then now it's gonna take me 30 to 45 days just to get you to move out. If you don't fight it.
I got lucky. She didn't receive a single piece of mail at my spot. So I got lucky. And I said, hey, you need to figure it out. Because what you are showing me is that we are good for a short time, but not a long time. You need to figure it out. You need
Hey,
to
coach going
figure
off.
it out.
Coach was going off on mute. I would have heard what you guys say.
No, I was just saying, I'm not changing the law. I'm just going to change your mindset about being in my house. When I tell you to go, you might want to go. I'm just being honest. No laws needed.
The law might be needed.
The
but
law
no-
might be needed.
I'm learning something on this one for real, because I didn't know about homosexuals, meaning what it means, and I didn't know that I felt sorry for you meant in-house booty. I didn't know them things, so I'm learning. But for me, I would want a spouse or a roommate fax, like a Carfax. They got these things like a spouse fax,
You and
and it
these
runs
props.
down. I need a credit report. I need to know whether you got school loans. I need to know all of that, because I need to know anything that I'm about to have to tie myself into that may bring me down. I need to know about it. I don't want it shocking me when I go to file taxes and you come up with some excuses and saying this, that, and the other. So y'all hit the ball out of the park with everything else. I'm going with the finances, because I need to know financially, are you a liability to me? Are you going to bring me down? I'm looking at 800 credit scores and you looking at 400. We don't mesh. We aren't seeing things eye to eye. I need to know spending habits. Are you a person like me? I'm a person where if they make a commercial for it, one of them infomercials, I'm liable to buy it. So I need somebody that's not like, see, exactly. So you talking about all the gadgets and stuff. I seen one little, hey, I know it's gonna be in the mail. I got Amazon, all of they be at the door all the time. So I need to know, are you like that? Are we gonna have to set a savings aside for that type of stuff? Because we both can't be splurgers. We both can't be the same when it comes to things like that. So financially, I need to know where we are, where we're starting off, whether we need counseling in this area also. Because, and I'm not even gonna touch what you guys hit because y'all knocked it out of the park. But give me my roommate, spouse facts, or whatever, and we'll be all right.
And can I add a little bit
Yeah, go ahead,
to
man.
that? Just the details, and like you said it real quick, glazed over it, the spending habits. That's important too. Having $30,000 of student loan debt that you're paying off, and on a regular basis, and you're not splurging, is different than having $30,000 on 10 credit cards, all from retail shops. Totally different. You know what I mean? Like you said, when we get married and stuff like that, our finances are a huge that's how we live our life. Off of we use money to buy things and to buy things in life, to pay rent, all these different things. So if we're not good with our money, it could be a huge problem. Now, and the other part is that, are you willing, or is someone willing to adjust so that the relationship can be successful?
Right. And I'm a person, I don't like paying, when the credit card say minimum, that's to keep you enslaved to the credit card. I don't like paying minimums. You can pay $10 a month, and then you're gonna be it's $5. So I don't like that. So I need to know how you pay your bills. And if I'm the problem financially when it comes to paying bills, if that's your area of expertise, I'm good with that. Like Unc, you brought up about cooking and stuff. I'm the cook in my house. I'm the person that washed the clothes in my house. Why? Because I like the way I do it. I cook because I don't work outside the home, and I'm not waiting on somebody to come in. She ain't home yet. So I ain't waiting on somebody to come in at 8 o'clock before I eat. And I like to cook. And it's things like that. I don't look at certain things as, oh, because you the woman or you the man. I like when I cook, when I do the clothes, it's calming. It gives me a time to sit up there and think and just resonate, where I can fold these hot clothes that smell like Downy and all that other stuff. It helps me with, hey, whether it's PTSD or whatever, it helps me. So it's certain things that, I ain't worried about you doing this, that, and the other, but you're not going to be a liability in any area and not be willing to change or adjust.
So it don't carry the same weight as it did previously, but I just wanted to say that I have an affiliate account that I shop on Amazon to get my stuff. I'm just saying that whatever. I do that and I enjoy it. So there it is. It is what it is. Go ahead, Gad. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. That was it was a funny plug. But I think because Roland brought up the roles thing, right? The older I get, the more I try to examine this thing down to the core. Because I'm one of those "how did we get here" type of people, right? Before I can say I fully understand my opinion on the matter. And so I think the core start or belief when it comes to these roles situation is, what do you believe about who works, who don't works, who pay the bills, who do this, who do that? I think it starts at the basic foundation, because I think the idea of the woman being the cook or whatever is the idea that the man is out working, and because you, like you mentioned, you don't work outside the home. Now, granted, everybody don't know your whole situation, but you pay the bills, right? So some people look at, I pay the bills, you benefit from me paying the bills, so I need you to cook and clean. Or I work outside the home and you in the home, ain't no reason why when I come home it ain't smelling like Thanksgiving and looking like a Mr. Clean infomercial, right? So I think it starts at that root foundation, because now if you because women do have a point. You can't ask for the woman to go out, work 8-9 hours a day like you and pay half the bills, but she has all the responsibility in the house. So I think that it starts there, and that's the first conversation that need to be had before you get into the conversation of trying to break out who does what and who's in charge of what.
Dwayne having power problems right now, but here, jump back on. They having some weather issues out there.
You know what? Nope, not tonight.
You
Nah,
know,
go
man,
on,
no,
go
man,
on.
go
You,
ahead.
you
Hey,
can't start it off.
Coach ain't he can't shut us down right now. Go ahead, man. Roll with it.
Well, we gonna go to some of the questions in the chat.
The inmates running the show now, Chief. No.
Yeah.
We running the asylum.
Yeah, we in the town. Here we go.
Yeah.
See, that's the question. What is the cohabitation leading to? Like,
Yeah.
why are we living together if all we're going to be doing is living together? do you plan on being with me for the rest of my life? Do I even want you to be with me for the rest of my life? Like, I'm not moving. Listen, man, listen. I am not moving anyone into my place of peace unless I want you to be a part of that peace, and unless you are showing me that you can be a part of that peace and not bring chaos into it. I'm not doing that. No, get out of here. Go be independent and pay your own bills like you say you want to. Get out my face. I'm not doing that. No, absolutely not.
See, and I'm with you there. And like before me and my wife got married, she had a house, I had a house, and then it was like, okay, well, I was like, well, she was like, well, I ain't moving in your house, which I understood because my house was a party house, and I'm saying party loosely. It was it was almost a bordello over there sometime, and we had crazy moments. I was single, and when I got with her, all that slowed down, then stopped. Yeah, but so when it came to her place, I was like, well, it's kind of small. So we decided to purchase a new home. So what we did in building our home, the one we're in now, I moved in with her for a few months because it took 6 months to build or whatever. I'm like, well, I ain't gonna keep paying. I'm paying over here and paying for this to be built. So no. So I moved in with her. But the objective was we knew that hey, wedding is this day. House ain't gonna be ready for a couple months, but wedding is this day. So we were cohabitating beforehand. But the objective was to be married. I want to move with somebody just to kick it. Then somebody got to move. You get an attitude. I ain't being put out of nowhere.
But see, that's the thing. You had a plan.
Yes.
You had a plan and you put that plan into motion. A lot of people out here don't have a plan. They just moving in together just to move together. And I'm like, no. No. Get out of here. I do
I'm like,
not need a
yeah,
roommate. I'm in my 40s. I do not need a roommate. If I wanted a roommate, I would have put your name on the lease and I would ask for half of the rent and half of the utilities like a roommate. I am looking for a wife. Are you my wife? Are you trying to be my wife? If you are not, you gotta go because you in the way.
I think even if you are planning on getting married at some point, when the conversation is being held and we're talking about, hey, let's move in together, I think you have to have a contingency plan. I think you have to think about, hey, what happens if we get together and after a year we can't stand each other. We decide that we can't function. Somebody has to move out or leave or something. So I'm not saying that you plan for the worst, but when there is no ring or when you are doing something to see if you can get something else, I think you have to put that out there or at least have that conversation. Well, what do y'all think? I mean, that's what I think.
I I don't disagree, but I'm gonna take the approach that it looks like a lot of people are luring to, and I like that approach. So I'm gonna take that approach. I don't to in certain in the grand scheme of things, if you take it from a perspective of from the book, if that is your because there are people out there that's making it clear that this is where they're looking at it from. So if you're looking at it from the perspective of what the scriptures say, I don't think it matters in the grand scheme of things. It it should be marriage is the cause of cohabitation, right? So we know that's the standards. Now we can get out there and talk about what is shacking up. Does the Bible address shacking up, like the old folks used to say it, right? Uh, and 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 when you choose in certain terms, it becomes subjective because I can define it differently than you. But the total idea is you creating more chaos in your life if this cohabitation is not the result of of marriage. Like And I do see the situation because life is a little bit different, right? It ain't as easy to just drop if I to drop a notice and move out on the exact time. Because what if something happened and we can't get married? Do I? But I gave up my lease, and where do I go now? And I understand those situations. So some people might move in, prior to the wedding date, but there's a date. There's something set up. There's something in place in the future. You see it. You at that line. So I do that. That's why I subscribe. But not just on that basis, but it brings chaos because every person you date gonna come live with you.
Right.
At what
And
end?
that's why you intentionally date. When you dating, this shit, if you out there just in the streets, that's different. But somebody you even thinking about moving into the same space, you looking at this being a team effort. So now we got work to do. Because I know there's some stuff about me that I can't stand. So I know another person won't be able to stand it, or they got to deal with it. So I got to show you my dirty laundry. You got to show me your dirty laundry, and we got to come together. So while we're even dating outside of in separate spaces, like I tell my daughters, if a dude got a dirty car, he got a dirty house. He keep a dirty house. Plain and simple to me. So if you date a dude with a dirty car, expect him to expect you to clean up after. So because I look at it like that's a extension of me. My car, if somebody come to my car and looking in it, I got cookie boxes and pizza and just stuff all strolled over. It's like, come on now, what are we doing here? It's like if you aren't responsible for this, when we move together, it's gonna be like, hold up, I got another kid. So, and that's not what grown folk don't want to add additional kids when we're talking about relational.
Yeah, yeah, I do apologize. I had a power surge, so I appreciate everybody continuing to march on. And I don't know why I left. Roland was talking about laundry, and I came back. He's still talking about laundry. Um, I'm just saying. Um, but I do appreciate all of the comments that you guys are making in the chats because I mean, you guys are literally you're looking at it from all ends of the spectrum, and I think that's what it takes. Don't forget to answer the poll that I put in up on YouTube as well because I am interested to see what your outcomes are. And just for you guys to understand, the question is, do you believe that couples should cohabitate prior to marriage? Oddly enough, 29% right now says yes, 21% says no, and 50% have mixed emotions. I did that for a reason because I want us to understand the type of world that we live in right now. I think when we were younger, and I think we all are pretty similar. I think when we were younger, we were raised under a common pretense. And I heard Gaddy use the word shacking. That was the thing you heard all the time, right? I think it's clear and obvious now things are different. I was trying when before the power surge, I was actually looking up the data because somebody asked a question. I think it was Bernadette. She asked a question about whether or not cohabitating decreases the opportunity for not opportunity, but decreases the chances of divorce over time. I was running it down, and I believe I was coming to the point where there is actually statistical data dating back to 2018, none later than 2018, that actually confirms that that is a true statement. Statistical data shows that shacking up, as Gaddy says, decreases the chances for divorce. Now, I got it. Most of us older heads don't necessarily agree with that because it's a mindset. For me, I don't. Whatever you do, that's on you. I'm not passing no judgment. Again, that's you. You're the one that got to atone for it. And whatever like these gentlemen was talking about, all these different things, right? They will come to bear. For me, the original question, and I appreciate you guys again continuing, but the original question, my response to it was going to be psychological stability, because that would be the thing that I need to understand. I don't do crazy. I'm just being honest. I think we all have a version of crazy. So I just need to understand, is your crazy a little bit too eccentric for me? Once I understand your crazy is above the ridge, then we can make a decision up front. So I think those are the things, those are some of the issues that we run into, especially if, and that's if I believe in cohabitating, by the way, especially if I decide to cohabitate with you before understanding what kind of crazy you are. And don't take the word crazy to offense. I believe that everybody has a degree of crazy in them. And if you don't believe, just spend a little time with yourself, and you'll come to that realization.
I am nuts. Not gonna lie to you.
Yeah, I got it. So we're gonna continue to press forward here, and hopefully the weather allow me to finish. And if not, these brothers are more than capable to continue forward. So the talking points that we're gonna dive into. I'm talking about the medications. I need to stop. The talking points we're gonna dive into. We got five of them, right? First is expectations versus reality. Now I already know with these panel of brothers that we got, we can stay there all night long. I already get it. Number two is pressure to marry. Number three is boundaries in personal space. Number four, as already stated, financial disagreements. And number five is legal protection. That being said, as we started doing, we have a scenario. So the scenario is about John and Emma, both in their late 20s, have been dating for a year. Given the amount of time they spent at each other's place, they decided it would be more practical and economical to move in together. They were excited about this new chapter and had visions of harmonious cohabitation filled with romantic dinners, movie nights, and deepening their bond. Their expectation was a shared living situation where both would contribute equally to household chores and maintain a balanced lifestyle of work, personal hobbies, and shared activities. Emma envisioned John cooking dinners some nights as he often bragged about his culinary skills during their dating phase, while John looked forward to enjoying Emma's penchant for organization and cleanliness, assuming that this would translate to a tidy shared living space. The reality, however, unfolded differently. John's work schedule was erratic and often kept him out late, leading Emma to take on the majority of the cooking duties. While John did indeed enjoy cooking, he found himself too exhausted from work to contribute in a way Emma had anticipated. On the other hand, Emma's organization skills were more focused on personal belongings and less on shared living spaces, leading John to feel frustrated about clutter in their shared areas. Their cohabitation started to feel less like a shared living experience and more like a series of unmet expectations. The discrepancy between their romanticized expectations and the reality of daily life started causing friction. Both started feeling discontent and resentful, leading to arguments that they hadn't anticipated when they decided to move in together. So, first and foremost, we're going to dive into expectation versus reality. Often, the romanticized expectation of living together doesn't match the reality. The day to day routines, habits, and personality traits that become apparent can lead to disappointment or conflict. Question that I have for you, gentlemen: what steps could Emma and John take now to address the reality of their situation, reconcile their unmet expectations, and foster a more harmonious living environment?
Whew. I'm gonna
Open
try to
a
jump
pie
in on that.
holes.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, open your mouth and start having a conversation. Someone needs to go to someone else and say, hey, look, this is not what we intended. Let's sit down and let's have a conversation. Blah, blah, blah. I'm going to start with that, go around, and then I'll come back. But just right off the top of my head, they need to start with having a conversation about expectations and who's going to do what in the household. Actually, not even getting to a solution yet. Having the conversation first to express expectation management, um, what we thought was going to happen, and what actually is happening. So, start off with having a conversation to address some of the issues.
I think that's where it starts and that's where it ends. You have the conversation, figure it out. You all are living together now. You all made the choice to share the same roof. Have the conversation. Talk. Hey, your work schedule is causing a little grief. You're not doing what you were doing when I saw what you were doing. You understand what I'm saying? It's simple. Sit down like a couple of grown-ups and talk. Figure it out.
That's what I think. I think it's a conversation. Conversation needs that should have been had already, because sometimes we have expectations of what people are supposed to do because of what they're doing or what they did. So then when we start living together, it's like, okay, she used to wear this nightie, now she got the moo on. What you putting on your head? And all this other stuff. We think crazy like that. We think
Ain't nothing
she
wrong
go
with that
to bed
moo.
looking like she looked when she see us, but now she
What's that
waking
stuff
up,
on your face?
huh?
Say, what's that stuff on your face?
See, and you walking around in your saggy drawers and stuff, and she like, oh look, this ain't what I signed up for. But expectations lead to disappointments. That's why you got to know what you're getting into, so you have those conversations. So now they in it, they like, hold up, this ain't what I thought it was. So now they gotta converse and actually communicate what it is that they were expecting to see where the disconnect is, so they can move forward if that's what they want to do.
I'm gonna try to streamline my comments better because I can tend to be vague sometimes because I don't want to offend. But
Say it with your chest.
it's a lot of. See, look, you said that and messed my camera up. No.
There you go. He about to say something foul.
Nah, but
Save him
but
from
but but
himself.
but real talk. I think when we're talking about cohabitation, I'm going to make the assumption, right, from my perspective, I'll make the assumption that the end goal is marriage, right? That the vision is long-term cohabitation. And if that's the case, I think sometimes we forget that this thing is a lifetime marathon, that you never stop running, you never stop pushing, right? It's like you stuck in the middle of the race for a long time. And that middle of the run, anybody who's ever ran a PT test know that's sometimes that's the worst part. That's when you got to kick yourself back into gear. And when what you have to realize is when reality does not meet expectation, even if you have, because me personally, before I have a conversation with my wife, I first readjust in my mind what I thought it was supposed to look like and what it's actually looking like, so that when I address the situation, I can also address myself, because I understand, all right, I can't cook every day. So when I come into this, I need to have some sort of a solution prepared. And my solution might be, maybe we need to cook multiple meals because we both work and we both ain't got time to cook. So maybe we need to cook multiple meals so we can have food to heat up when we get home. Whoever get home first, heat up the food. You don't have to cook. Or maybe it's like, hey, we cook on these days right here and we sit down and eat together. Like I have to have some sort of a solution, because you have to readjust, because it's every step of the way you're going to constantly be let down by reality. And it's how do I readjust what we want to reality? And it may never look like what your beginning expectation was, but once we learn how to meet each other halfway, we learn how to be happy with our reality and stop expecting something that's not real. If he don't get home to 7 o'clock at night, you don't expect that gourmet meal that he was bragging about. That's why when everybody talked about that conversation happening first, I agree. But when it happens first, be realistic, man. Yeah, I can cook, but I do work a job that makes me work this hard, or I work this hard because I'm building something on this job to move up in the future, or whatever the case may be. She needs to understand that as well as I can cook.
Okay, speaking of being realistic, I mean, I appreciate everything you guys say, but let's be realistic. It already happened. Tensions are high at this point, and I love your and I'm mashing your toes just a little bit, just to be honest with you. I love your Dr. Phil approach here, but at the end of the day, good and doggone well, it ain't gonna go like that. Tempers are high, tempers are flaring. What happens now?
What happens now?
Yeah.
I take the lead and say, sit down and let's talk.
Whoa. You ain't my husband. We just dating, brother.
Okay, if that is the case, then I'm going to treat it as such. If you are going to throw that in my face, then I'm going to throw, I don't need to provide for you like I am a husband. I don't need to do any of these things. I'm doing this because I see something in you. We
But I'm
need to
paying
talk.
half the rent. I'm paying 50%.
Then
I'm
let's
paying
just be
half the rent.
then let's just be roommates until this lease is up and then go on about our business. I am not afraid to take a loss. It is what it is. You are not about to bully me and punk me into doing anything. We need to sit down and we need to talk. If you want to see something progress from this, then we need to sit down like grown-ups and figure out how we can do something to progress from this. If you want to sit there and throw a temper tantrum like a 2-year-old who got their bike stolen from the playground, then we can play that card too. You're not about to do this to me. You don't run nothing.
But
Are
I
you
pay half the
serious?
rent. So I run half of this too.
Okay,
She
then we're
might feel like you
roommates.
don't want that.
And I know
What?
I keep saying it, but that's, as I'm envisioning this conversation, that's what I see happening.
I
Not
get
all the
that.
time. You know what I mean?
And I get that. You pay half the rent, you have half to say. That is just how
Hey,
that's the equivalent exchange. But you are not about to use the fact that you pay half the rent to try to get me to do husbandly things when you are not trying to be my wife or you are not doing wifely things simply because something changed and you are in your feelings about it. Okay, let's talk like grown-ups. If you really want to see this progress, if you just want to throw this temper tantrum, okay, when this lease is up, you can go find yourself some place to stay and we can just play it like roommates. And I can go find my wife.
can we bring this back down for a second?
No,
Because
no, I don't want to break it down yet. We
Yeah.
moving. No, we
all
backtracking
right,
too fast.
Nah,
And
I
here,
mean, if you
but
saying if
hold on,
tensions are
hold on.
high,
Let me set the conditions because this is what I really and truly do believe. I believe a lot of times we and I just want to be transparent. I think a lot of times, sure, we give a very calm and subtle approach to handling the thing, and that is the perfect scenario. The perfect scenario is that the person that I'm talking to, they're emotionally calm, they're reserved, and they're disappointed. And they're not angry, they're disappointed. And ideally, when I come in, we have a conversation, then the disappointment doesn't come out as an emotional outburst. When we all know that that's not, in most cases, the reality of the truth. It takes years for people to get to that level of maturity. So, what I don't want to do is I don't want to baseline this to all the way to clearly understood emotional maturity when a majority of the people don't exist there as of right now. We'll get to where you want to go to in a second, but I don't want to bring it. And I'm not saying that we're yelling back and forth, but I don't want to bring it back down yet because a lot of people can't relate to that. You understand what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying here. So please continue.
see, all I'm saying is this. If you moved in with somebody and something changes or something isn't what you expected it to be, sit down, have the conversation and say, hey, this is what I expected. This is what it is. How can we meet in the middle? You understand what I'm saying? Don't try to throw what you doing in my face because then I'm going to say, all right, you don't have to do any of that because I'm going to make sure I am not homeless before anybody else gets kicked out. You can keep your half for the rent. Go find someplace else to stay. You're not about to throw that in my face. You understand what I'm saying? If you want to talk like grown-ups, let's talk like grown-ups. Don't do this tit for tat. I'm doing this, so I should be. We're not doing that. We're supposed to be grown-ups. So let's talk like grown-ups, especially if we see a future with each other. You understand what I'm saying? You are not about to hold anything that you are doing over my head because to keep it real, I am never going to be homeless. So your little 50% that you throwing in, I already have stacked up. So if you dip out, I still have a place to stay. You understand what I'm
but
saying? That is what I mean by covering. That is what I
if
mean
you
by
come in,
covering. If I bring you in my under my roof and you decide that you want to pay half of the rent or whatever, I still got to make sure that the other half is set. So that way, if you decide to bounce, I still got a roof over my head. I don't need it.
but that's
Get
where
out
it
my
gets
face.
But to me, that gets contradictive, because when we come in and they hear the situation and I'm in charge and sit down and listen to me, you have nothing else to expect. But
It's
I
not
pay
a
half
sit
the
down and
bills. You're
listen
not
to
going
me
to.
thing.
No, but
It's not
that's how
that.
you. But that's where you
No, it is
started. So
not.
what I'm
It's sit
listen.
down and let's talk
That
about
is.
this.
Hold on. That's where you started. So because that's where you started, it's hard to get back to the how do we compromise. No, because you told me to sit down and hush, and you taking charge, when that's when the whole idea of, wait, I'll pay half the rent. You
That
get
is
what I'm
where
saying?
you
So it's
misconstrue
not.
what I was saying. When I said sit down and let's talk, it wasn't sit down, you pay half the rent and I pay half of the rent. It was sit down, let's talk, and let's figure this out so we can grow together. It had nothing to do with that. Unc brought up the whole I pay half of the rent thing, and then that's when I did what I did. However, initially, if I'm bringing you under my covering, I need to have a conversation with you to figure out how I want to keep you there. And if you don't want to be there, and if you want to throw what you're doing in my face, bye. But I want you here. So let's figure this out. If I see something with you, you understand what I'm saying? That is what I meant by take the lead, take charge. Hey, sit down, let's talk, let's figure this out like grown-ups.
Right. So the sit down is not me,
Literally.
being powerful over you. It's just let's
Right.
sit down and have a discussion together.
Yeah.
Go ahead, bro. You
You
muted,
mute.
bro.
I think with the situation with her expectations being compromised by his work schedule, by him working, I think that shows a level of immaturity on her part. So if you have to talk sternly to her right then to get her to see, like, dude, I'm trying to make this happen for us. And sure, I want to be here and do this, but this is work. This is what puts food on the table, what pays bills. So there has to be a give and take on some things. I can see if I'm out here just chilling with the boys, but I'm at work. So if I get frustrated in that, because at the end of the day, I know I'm doing right and I'm living right, and you coming at me about some bull, I'm gonna come at you like you coming at me about some bull. I'm not gonna come at you, well, baby, we need to talk about this. Like, there may be some choice words in there because I'm offended by your conversation towards me, like I'm not doing my part.
The fact that
Yeah.
you want me to stop doing what I was doing that attracted you to me in the first place because you are in your feelings, no.
But I
Get
don't
out
know
my
in the
face.
so
I can't. My bad. Go ahead.
I think that, when coach is talking about now, tempers are high right now, right? So tempers are high. So we hope in a perfect world that when tempers are high, we can just say, hey, look, we can flip a switch, say, hey, babe, look, let's calm down. Let's have this conversation. It don't work like that. You know what I mean? Temperatures and frustrations are high. So when they are high, at some point, someone has to take the lead. And I'm not saying that it has to be the man or the woman. The more mature person needs to be the person to say, hey, look, this is not going anywhere. We need to take a pause and we need to have a conversation. Maybe we can't have the conversation right now, but let's go back to the blueprint. When we decided that we were going to move in together and that we were going to do things 50-50, this is what I envision. This is what you envision. This is not what's going on. How can we get there? That's what needs to happen. It's probably not going to happen that night. By the time they get to the point to where temperatures and nose hairs are flying, nose nostrils are flaring, and veins are popping out of necks and heads, and things are getting picked up but not thrown. You I'm only
I
talking to the people who have been into some relationships. You know what I mean? So if all your relationships have been perfect, this is not for you. I'm talking about people who have been in some in-depth, deep down,
I
nostril flaring, vein popping conversation with their
But
significant
see,
other.
I need to
but
put
I
you
guess
see,
on my
where
calendar.
I guess I guess where I can't relate is because I'm not finna come in my house and yell. Not where I
But we
live.
never said
If
yelling.
I get but that's that I'm like I don't like so if I get that frustrated, right? I'm gonna call one of my boys first because I'm not finna get into a back and forth match and be frustrated while I lay my head at. Like so that's just me. I
Like
don't
I
know.
said, for
I
y'all,
don't
those that got these perfect relationships.
My relationship
See,
ain't perfect, but
here's the
I'm
thing.
not finna argue. I'm not finna
Right.
argue.
It is not
before
that.
I don't know more, but
bef-
I'm not 20 anymore. I got
Listen.
married at 20.
It is not about having a perfect relationship or anything like that. What I have learned when you are dealing with an overly emotional person is that in order for them to have the next thing, you have to give them the next thing. You understand what I'm saying? So if you are dealing with somebody who is hyper emotional and doing all of this stuff, this is the straw that broke the camel's back, and you sit there with a straight face and a calm spirit and say, let's talk, they have nothing to feed off of. So they don't have a choice but to relax because you relaxed. You understand what I'm saying? Now, if they want to keep going to try to get you in your feelings like that, you go do that over there. You've already shown me that you don't need to be under my roof because you can't simmer down and have a calm conversation. Bye.
Can I jump in? See, I like that, and I like that we got a little excited about it because, and I agree that somebody has to bring it down. And I'm gonna be straight up, and some people gonna be mad at me. Most likely, they'll be women. Ain't got no problem with that. Be mad. I don't sleep with you. No, I'm just kidding. But
Is that what we are doing this
wait,
Friday
wait a minute,
evening?
wait. Listen to
That's
me. I know
facts,
they're gonna be
though.
mad. I'm just joking. I like to joke. But men are more able to submit themselves, to calm themselves, to listen. And that's why when you still doing this, he be like, okay. And you still doing this, he be like, okay. And that's why even the scripture starts off with, wives, submit yourselves to your own husband. And I don't say that to the men first. I say it to the women because the men are to do other things. But then it's, yeah, you got to submit, whatever. But it said, wives, submit. Because at the end of the day, like, I don't want to argue because when we argue, we want to fight, we want to touch things, we want to grab things. That's why it's easy for us to say, okay, quit, we try to squash it right then. Okay, we'll talk about it later. Because if it's here and you still go taking it there, you putting yourself in the offensive posture against a person that's trying to be defensive, and he's telling you pump your brakes because one of them comedians said, I ain't gonna hit a girl, but I shake her. Like, no, I don't want to shake nobody. So hey, calm down. Let's come back to this, when you ain't so high, and then we can deal with it. And some of that was jokes. So, if you're gonna be mad at me, charge it to my head.
Let them be mad.
So I did that on purpose, and how I said it earlier, that's exactly what I mean. Like I said, like get to understand that you said I'm not going to argue in my house and arguing, and I get that. I can appreciate that, but again, would 22-year-old Timothy, I mean, Gaddy have behaved the same way? You see what I'm saying? So that's the point. Like this turns out to be a digital library for somebody to look at, and I don't want everybody to think that we came through our entire lives being this way. We were not the same way in our 20s. Trust me, it just like that. That's all it took. What'd you say? And it was on. So that's what I'm saying. Like, even in this situation, because we lived, I think we talked about this last week. Like when we was in the army, we didn't get off work at the exact same time every day. There was some days that at the drop of a dime, and I think it probably was on Uncle Junior's channel, at the drop of a dime, we could be working late. You got no notification. I had to call you from the motor pool and say, hey, be a little late tonight, so I made you tripping. And that's it. That's all you got. Well, why this and what? Man, I ain't got time for that. Click. You know what I'm saying? We'll deal with that when I get home. So that's the thing that I'm saying. I just don't want to give the impression because somebody in some place is dealing with a scenario that falls exactly like we just got finished talking about. And again, the issue is if we talk about it, say, yep, just sit down, talk to him calmly, and blah, 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 blah. But she over there throwing the frying pan, bruh. I can't talk calmly in that situation. Like Uncle Junior said. I'm gonna put Uncle Junior in my calendar too, by the way. I just want y'all to know that. But you know what I'm saying? She throwing frying pan. You want me to sit down and be that's unrealistic to me. So I need for you to meet me where I am. And that's why I want to talk about it from all perspectives. Sure, if that's the case, we need to have a conversation. Remember, when tempers are high and emotions are high, cognition is low. I stress that. Go back and take a look at the thoughtful disagreement conversation that we had because that's the perfect place to inject it. At some point, we got to decide how we're going to move forward, how we're going to build on this conversation. And I think that's important. Whew. Listen, we've been we've been at this one for a second here, man. So I know it's a
That was
lot of
fun.
comments that I missed, but I also want to make sure I point it out. If you joined us a little late, make sure that you chime into the poll that I have on YouTube. Right now, we're sitting at 31% saying yes, 19% saying no, and we got a mix of 50%. So the question is, do you believe that couples should cohabitate prior to marriage? 29, now 18, now 53% say they have mixed feelings on that. And I really want to know because I think this is interesting. It just goes to show that times have changed. Let me see who comments that I miss altogether. Um, I think Kendrick James said, "Can a marriage be a cohabitation?" I can answer that one easy.
I thought you was gonna answer it.
You
Nah,
can
I
be
mean,
you can be married. It's not really a marriage. It's just cohabitation, and I don't believe that's where we're getting into other things because I don't believe that in marriages that piece of paper that you got when you went. I got married in Toledo, Ohio, because you couldn't do it in just a piece in Michigan. It's where Chris is, and it's a piece of paper, and that's so they can tax us and all that other stuff and make sure we don't do certain things, and it's just another tracking system. But when we make a vow to each other to be this and live up to it. And people say, you made a vow before God, you ain't even know him, so stop. So I'm not even going that route either because I think my first marriage, I probably was drunk at the ceremony. So, I mean, I'm being real. I mean,
Oh,
most
well, here's
people,
to you.
He
we ain't
said, "Do
judging.
not
Hey,
be drunk.
we're not judging. I just didn't expect to hear it.
yeah, I
Do
mean,
not be
Here's
drunk."
to you.
people will get married for various reasons, especially, young people. When I was an instructor, people go away on the weekend. They just met in basic training. They going to get married because they 18 to 21, they legal, they can do it. But they don't know one another. So then when she liking private Snuffy over here, you tripping, but you married her because you spent that night with her and she had your toes curled and you thought she was the creme de la creme. So whatever.
Happens all the time in the
Yeah.
military.
All right. So I think we pretty much got that one. The next question that is up on the board here, I think we touched it already. Bernadette, she said she's asked, "Do you think cohabitation lowers divorce rate?" And I think we pretty much gave the statistics on that one, so we're not going to pretty much touch that one. I said there's statistics to where it actually proves that it does. All right. Next is my brother Christian Barrow. Good to see you, my friend. His question is pro- how to properly handle baggage when it comes to cohabitating. So I think he is making reference to that crazy we was talking about.
Yeah, I got to know what baggage it is because the baggage definitely counts. Is it kids baggage? Is it relationship baggage? Is it financial baggage? So, if he's still there, Chris is still there,
Yeah, fair enough.
unless
What
you
if
know specific what
what if
baggage.
what if you don't know and what if you don't find out the baggage is there until y'all are cohabitating?
Which is mostly
Then,
reality.
which is
That's reality.
reality. That's when
Yeah.
you have to know yourself and already know what your red flags are and know what you're willing to put up with and what you're not. If you already like Roland said, if you go in with intent, that means you have probably already done some sort of mental thinking already ahead of time. So you're dating with intent. And if you do it like that, not a big deal. I lost my train of thought. That's why I stopped.
Because we argue over dumb stuff. Men, oh, she don't make spaghetti like my mama. She don't do this like my mama. Because your mama been feeding you. I'll leave the other body part off. Been feeding you your whole life, and you are a mama's boy, so you want to make sure she does it like her. And that's not the reality of it because she didn't go live with your mama and learn from your mama. She learned it a certain way. So we have to get to the point to where the little trivial things, and that comes with maturity. Because as a young person, me and my old lady, we got into it over. She pulled the doggone plug out of Nintendo, and we were about to fight. Like because you couldn't save games back then. What no memory
That is
card?
true. Not unless you got to a save point.
Yeah, so young person, 20, 21 years old, you ready to do dumb stuff because you aren't mature, you haven't lived, and now we're acting here like these people all are 40 plus years old and making these decisions like, oh, well, you just got to do this and just because he's sitting up there like, F that. I'm going to get some, back then it was cheap, some E&J. You wasn't getting no hand then. You was on E&J. And you going to do this and you going to do something dumb and you going to the club and you going to do this. And it's like, so then now your rationale is of a younger person. Now, younger people may have these arguments. Me, at about to be 50, I ain't even taking the time to argue about some of that.
I like it. So he just defined baggage for you, Jets.
Past relationship and financial.
I'm sorry.
Past relationship baggage. Ooh, how do you deal with it? It shouldn't carry over to your house.
Nope. If the baggage is carrying over, then this is what I think. I think there's always going to be a little bit of bleed over, just being honest. But I think that it lessens it if the person have dealt with that baggage. What I mean is if someone has been in a relationship and they've hurt or they've had trauma, blah, 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 they've dealt with those things and then they have moved on. Not saying that every once in a while they won't be a flashback or a flare up or something like that of the trauma. But for the most part, those things should be going away. So for me personally, a lot of people have baggage, but I think kind of stay away from it as much as possible. Look at what things you're willing to work with somebody on and things that you're not willing to work with them on. And the same thing go with financial. It all depends on what the financial baggage looks like. I mentioned earlier that financial $30,000 of student loan debt that you are paying for is way different than $30,000 of retail debt on 10 different credit cards, Macy's, TJ Maxx, whatever like that. Totally different.
If we're talking about baggage, as in past relationships, and we are to the point we are about to start moving together and we are about to start living together, and you are talking to me as if I did what whoever did before I came along, go get some therapy and deal with that. And while you're doing that, you need to go find yourself a place to stay. Because you are not about to blame me for what somebody else did. I didn't do none of that to you. We not doing that. So you need to figure that out. As far as financial goes, Unc has a point. If you can't handle your money right, why would I move you into here so you can think that you can not handle your money and my money right? Absolutely not. We got to have that conversation. I'm not your dad. I don't have to love you like your father does. I have to love you like I need to love you. And you need to love me the way I need you to love me.
Now, here's the only way. Now, I am okay with moving forward if we can come up with a plan and you're willing to work and adhere to the plan. You know what I mean? Because I understand things happen. Me and Roland talked about it. Put a little card off the $500. You go to college, get the first with Roland, get the credit card from school. You know what I mean? $500. I was in debt 17 years old, $1,000 because I had 2 credit cards. So those things are important. But like I said, if they're willing to work on it, we come up with a plan, move forward.
Right.
Yeah, so
that's the thing. If we sit down and formulate a plan and you stick to the plan, then we have something because you're sticking to the plan and you're moving towards something bigger than you. But if you think you're just going to stay the way that you are and still be with me while expecting me to change and adhere to what you need, you are out of your mind. Bye.
And then
I'm
it's
not doing that.
subjective. Because here's the deal. If I'm worth $100 million, I don't really care about a woman who got $40,000 or bad spending habits either. I'm just saying in general. So it could come down to certain things in the lifestyle that you live too, and also what you're willing to accept and not accept out of your partner.
Yeah. So this is where I'm gonna give another perspective. I don't disagree with anything you guys say, but I want to kind of go back to what you said, Uncle Junior, because that's what I was going to say. Like life happens to people, and I don't want to look at people as though they had to be perfect all the way up to the point of me meeting them. However, when we start talking about the baggage that young Christian is talking about here, whether it's past relationship baggage, whether it's past finance baggage, if it does not impose on me, then we can work together. So whatever baggage that you bring from a past relationship, if it does not drive a wedge in between me and you, if it does not intrude into my space, things of that nature, then we can work together from a distant location. We ain't gonna cohabitate while you figure it out though. Right. I'm gonna have my space, you're gonna have your space, and then I will, we can work together as you attempt to go through therapy and overcome those things. I'm not going to run away if you're actively working towards it. But if you're just coming up with different coping mechanisms, like one coping mechanism after another coping mechanism. In other words, jumping from person to person to person, looking to make them your savior and not necessarily going to get the work for yourself. Now, that to me is where I have to draw the line. So I don't think it's a cookie cutter answer for this. In my opinion, I think what we have to do is assess each situation um, honestly. And I have to stress that piece, assess each situation honestly, see where you are in that situation, and then make the decision to move from that point on. But I think that's the best way to look at it. Man, listen, you guys have been on it all night. And, I apologize. I couldn't get to everybody's questions tonight. I know there was something I missed or to everybody's statement, but I do want to inject one more question in. And I think we got time to jump on this one real quick. It's the second half of the expectation versus reality. So, how could Emma how could Emma and John have better communicated their expectations of living together to reduce the discrepancy between their anticipated and actual cohabitation experiences?
You all know this. I am a lowest common denominator, bottom line kind of dude. The only way that they could have communicated their expectations is to let their egos go. They have to let their egos go and understand that what they are doing is for the benefit of the whole. Coach, you say this all the time. The most important person in the relationship is the relationship. Talk about the relationship. Hey, I know that your work schedule is crazy, but I expected you to do this. But since your work schedule is crazy, how can I help you better do this? Because this is what I expected from you. Okay, I know that you expected this from me, but my work schedule is nuts. What can I do for you to help you relax so that way we can move? It ain't about me. It ain't about you. It's supposed to be about us. Get your ego out of the way and have a grown-up conversation. And do not be afraid of taking an L, because having that grown-up conversation could mean you two split. It is what it is.
How could Emma and John have better communicated their expectations? Um, I think once they got into it and before the nostril slurns and the vein popping started happening, I think they should have had constant feedback. They should have had constant updates on how things were going in the relationship and then made the necessary adjustments when they had the feedback. So it's like, hey, something's wrong. Let's have a conversation. Let's discuss feedback and solutions. Let's make some adjustments, and then we're going to reconvene at another time. I think and I know people are like, oh man, that sounds so structured. But the reality of it is that can work because there's a plan right there. You know what I mean? But it's like, because when I say things like that, people say, oh, you've been because you was in the army, very militant and blah blah blah. But I'm just like, it's simple. You know what I mean? It's communication, is how things work. It's not just military. But I think that, you know, when you have the feedback, you update and you make adjustments. I think those things are what should have been communicated earlier, to where if they wouldn't have gotten this. If when he started working these late hours, if she started having a conversation with him after week 8, not week 18, the nostrils may not flare. You know what I'm saying? So I just think, you know, having earlier communications more often and having a plan to make adjustments if need be, and then reconvene is what could have happened to help reduce some of that stuff.
Whew. I'm gonna say I don't really know, because, and here's why I say that, right? Is because we've all been in a dating phase where we've put on our representative hat, and we gave all of our good attributes, and we sold the dream, and we've had relationships that ended because we didn't meet up to the expectation of the dream that we sold. Though I don't disagree with your perspective, I just don't know if they could, because when you in that infatuation phase, you trying to keep her at bay and she's trying to keep you at bay, and that's why in the scenario they both came up short. I think where the change comes in for me, I think is we have to understand that our realities and our expectations don't normally match. So when we come into these situations, we have to have a mind and a heart that is prepared to meet these obstacles and to meet these difficult conversations, because coach has already given us these tools weeks before and learn how to come into the scenario understanding that change is going to happen, because we are both looking for each other to make the situation better than what we already have going on. Is why I cohabitated with you, right? It's because I say I love you and I'm expecting you to better my situation. But if you don't better my situation how I want you to better my situation, a lot of times that's when all bets are off. But if we're truly coming into this thing, like we said earlier, dating with intent, then I think that where the change happens is how I approach the letdowns, or how I approach the reality not meeting expectation. Like my problem solving skills has to kick in then, because I'm just thinking from a reality standpoint. I know for a fact every time I dated, I probably sold a better dream than what I was prepared to give.
You are a better one than me. I never send a public relations dude. I send a dude from the mailroom. What Bernie Mac say, boy, be yourself. If people don't like you after you being yourself, it is what it is.
Up against the wall with handcuffs on them and super glue on the lips.
Hey, we all try to woo that girl. We all tried it.
Listen,
it's a part of the game. That's how it's the game we play. We play the game. We play the game. That's why reality never meets expectation.
And sometimes the only winning move is not to play. I don't play.
Hey, we got to keep moving so we can get into our final thoughts. Roland, go ahead, bro.
Yeah, I think we are, when you're trying to get somebody, you want them, but we talking the process. They about to get together in the same space, cohabitating. So I think you got to drop everything. You got to come butt naked honest. You gotta lose all of your I'm Rico Suave. You gotta be you. And so she know what she's getting into, and you want her to be her. So you got to stop all the faking, stop fronting, stop acting like you got it all together. Like, oh, I'm a 850 credit score dude, and like you don't have any problem, because if you put it all on the table, say what everything is, can't get mad. I told you, I gave it to you. So you can't come at me about what I gave you already and you decided to go move forward with it. Like if you got, I ain't gonna say that. If you have bad credit and I say, okay, we can work on it, then I knew ahead of time. So if it frustrates me, I can make it happen. So I say be yourself, be upfront, be honest. Don't do the what everybody say, well, you gotta, if you do it now, you gotta keep doing it to keep her. Nah, that's when you trying to get her. Once you got her and y'all in a relationship and y'all deciding on things, now I can't keep on giving you some fake dude. I got to give you the real me. So, because sometimes I don't like me and I know you won't like it. So, if it's going to get on your nerves to the point you can't live with it, hey, let's go on about your business. We ain't for each other. And, let's not waste time.
I feel like the pastor about to take the pulpit. Let the church say amen. Butt naked, honest. Butt naked, honest. Does anybody
From
else out
this
here want
day
to be butt naked,
forward.
honest? Listen, man. When you said that, man, I had to bite my tongue. I really did. Butt naked, honest. Chris said that's the highest form of honesty there is.
That's what they were in the Bible.
Butt naked,
Adam and
honest.
Eve.
I love it. I agree though. I agree. Not with the butt naked honest. You ain't got to take your clothes off to be honest. But be honest. Like lay all the cards on the table. Expectations, what you believe a relationship is supposed to be, in your own humble opinion, what you envision it being. And it may not mesh. And then if it doesn't mesh, if my thoughts aren't your thoughts and vice versa, then let's come together and figure out how we can, what's that word they say? How we can compromise, right? How can we compromise on this one thing? Sure, you may want me to cook all the time, but what if I don't get off early enough to come home and cook? What if I get off and I'm tired? What if I get off and you ain't thought, you know how it is. Boy, take that chicken out the freezer and thaw that chicken out by the time I get home. Right. So what if you forget to take the chicken out and thaw it out? What if I forget to take it out before I go to work? What if all of these, what if? You have to play the what if game, because if you don't play the what if game, you never look at other possible scenarios that goes into this utopian conversation that most people fail to have. I think what if adds complexities to add the necessary levels of complexity to your version of reality so you can get closer to what reality really looks like. And oh yeah, by the way, at that age, I can't even say age, at that stage in our life, cohabitating or not cohabitating, again, I'm not telling you what to do. That's my point. But you're still learning the person. I want to make sure I stress it. I can't remember who put that in there. Somebody put in there, are we dating to get married or are we dating to learn one another? In my humble opinion, the answer is B. You're dating to learn one another, because once you put that stigma, you're dating to get married, you have automatically put your expectations around that person's neck and you have held them hostage to your expectation of what marriage looks like. And let's be completely honest, most of us don't have the same doctrine when it comes down to marriage. And that's the reason why we teach it in the Empowering Perspective membership group. And we did it in detail, and we're still doing it in detail because, again, we really need to get back to the core competency of understanding what a true covenant is all about. So, that being said, bittersweet moment as always. We went a little long tonight, but we're going to kind of dive into our final thoughts. And that being said, we're going to start off with Brother Gaddy on stage.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, great show. Great show. I had fun. I think this was a fun one. And so I'm going to give my final thoughts from the same perspective I initially had, right? I believe that cohabitation should be the effects of the marital agreement, right? My brother Roland already expressed that the contract that you signed at the courthouse ain't necessarily the marriage, right? But once we're there and then we're cohabitating, and that should be the end goal, right? It shouldn't be the start of learning each other. It shouldn't be the start of building a bond together, because time with the person is what's going to get you past that representative stage, right? That allowing the relationship to go past that point to where I'm I'm just stuck in my infatuation phase with you. And then before we make the decision to move in, because it shouldn't be a haste decision, right? We the cards should already be laid on the table. And at that point, I can't lie to you no more, because after a while, you let your hair down, you start being yourself, you start telling them things about it, just spending time together more, going on more purposeful dates, and speaking more often. You have no choice but to learn the other person, and then you start to have an idea of how that person thinks, what that person believes. Then when you have the conversation, it's a little easier. You can digest better because you already see some of the raw truths in their personality, and you've already shown those raw truths. So that's my take. Let time build the relationship. Let time get you to get to know each other. Then start making the plans and the decision to move forward. Don't just move in haste.
Oh, I'm so sorry. There was a married woman in my DMs. Cohabitation, relationship builder or breaker? I am going to say I do not know, and I am grateful that I am in this privileged position to learn a thing or two. In some cases, it can be a builder, and in some cases, it can be a breaker. But I will say that there that cohabitation, no matter what stage you are in, like Tawame said earlier, it is one of those things that you kind of do not have a choice but to take the mask off and be honest. So just understand that if you are willing to cohabitate with somebody, whether it's one of your boys or whether it's somebody that you are trying to marry and progress into life with, you are going to have to be completely honest with yourself and with the person that you are cohabitating with. So just be ready for that. Be ready for that level of honesty. That's my final thought.
Cohabitation, relationship builder or breaker? Yes, and yes. It really comes down to the people who decide on cohabitating. I think at the end of the day, if both people go into the cohabitation with the understanding that, yes, we're going to have problems, yes, things are going to come up, but as long as we work together and we have conversations, we make adjustments in our plans or our routines, and then we continue to work and grow and try to make the cohabitation work, I think it will work fine. I think, on the other hand, if you get into it, like Coach said, with certain expectations of this and that, and what the other person is going to do and what they're responsible for, and this information is not clearly um, passed along and understood and agreed upon by all parties, then it can be a devastating thing. And then the breakup and the going to different apartments or homes and stuff like that can really be overwhelming, and it can be stressful. So I think that at the end of the day, whether cohabitation is a relationship builder or breaker, I honestly think that it's both. It depends on the people who get into the relationship, and if you decide to get married, then at the end of the day, then you need to be working towards that while you are cohabitating, if that's what you choose to do, and it's going to take both people to have valuable input in the plan going forward.
I say first learn yourself and then learn them as friends first, so that there's a level of respect there before you even get into all the other stuff. Because we do all the cooing and, oh, I just love him, I just love her, but we don't really know the levels of respect that these people need in order to cohabitate. Don't live with somebody that you don't see a future with. Don't even date somebody that you don't see a future with. If you don't see a future with them, why even be in a relationship with them? You're just wasting time and wasting that other person's time. And learn how you two communicate, because you can read all these books and things like that, but you two have a communication barriers that you got to break down. You have communication ways that the other person doesn't like. So when you learn one another, learn, okay, he doesn't like when I say this or say it this way. She don't like when I stand over her. When you learn one another and how they communicate, then it's a better overall setting. And I say, don't communicate. If you're not looking to make that person yours, why you bringing bills together, bringing families together, bringing situation, that whole situationship is not necessarily going to end well. So if you're not looking at it like it's a long-term thing, you can't lease people. So you have a friend, but don't bring them into your space like that in a living situation if you aren't willing to make it a reality to where that's yours. You're willing to say, hey, she represents me, I represent her, and we are in this thing together. And that comes with the with now in today's time, it comes with that piece of paper, but the piece of paper means nothing if you don't make a covenant agreement with her saying, hey, let's do this together. And then it's team us and not just team us for right now.
I love it. I love it. All great perspectives. I released the poll already, and as you can see, there is about 50% of the people who have mixed emotions about whether they should cohabitate prior to marriage. 33% say yes, and 16% say no. And I think that says a lot. I wanted to do that because I wanted to have a clear understanding across the board of what the consistency of thoughts are. There is no consistency of thoughts. It's a lot of confusion when it comes down to this one topic. Should you do it? Should you not do it? You know what I'm saying? And everybody has an opinion. Me personally, I don't. I say go look your mama and your dad in the eye and ask them what are your thoughts. If you feel that doing so will degrade the name that your parents gave you, then don't do it. If you don't feel that way, then do it. That's just my take on it. And I think when you look at it from that perspective, that's it. I don't really have an opinion when it comes down to it because everybody tends to get in their feeling. That's not why I don't have an opinion, right? I understand that today is a different day. When we were growing up, it was clear cut and defined easily. Easy. So I'm 60%. It was easy when we were growing up. It just wasn't a thing. Right now, I also understand when we were growing up, there was a lot of confusion when it comes down to other things as well. Right. Like you heard Roland say that marriage is just a piece of paper. Right. Now, as we got older, we understand things are different. I also believe that you don't walk around picking and yeah, I don't think you can Charles Darwin your way into a relationship. The strongest will survive. I think that's the most ridiculous thing that ever exists. So when you say, "Oh, I want this and I want this and all that," they should be 6'4", 220 pounds with a six packs, but you 5'2", about 175, knowing doggone well you ain't got no 6, 8, or 12. I'm just saying. I think that's the most ridiculous thing out there. We got to get out of this whole idea. Personal preference is a thing. There's nothing wrong with personal preference. But again, when we start picking and choosing, selecting, randomly placing, and all this other good stuff of people, who do we think we are? I think that's the thing we have to understand. Who do you think you are? You're no better than anybody else. Everybody has things they're dealing with. Everybody has concerns. If you don't think you do, don't worry. Just give time. It will reveal it to you. That's what I believe. So when it comes down to cohabitation, relationship builder or breaker, I don't think it's neither. I think at the end of the day, you build the relationship based upon your understanding of relationship and submitting yourself to relationship. I think that's it. Now, I'm not saying it's right for you to cohabitate either. That's just my point. I'll stay out of it altogether. For me, when I go around that corner, I'm by myself. That's just what I know. So I just got to say it that way because I think that's really the ultimate piece. So that being said, I've been a little long-winded on that. I do apologize. But as always, we greatly appreciate your time. We greatly appreciate the value that you add. I greatly appreciate everybody in the chat. If I did not speak to you, please, I ask for your forgiveness in advance. But I try to make it my business to acknowledge everybody in the chats. Trust me when I tell you, you are value added. We value you and we look forward to seeing you every Friday. That being said, we look forward to seeing you next Friday at 8 p.m. as we're going to continue this conversation. We're not done with it yet. We're going to continue this conversation on cohabitation. So we look forward to seeing you again next Friday at 8 p.m. here on the Hearts of Men podcast. Until then, have a great rest of your evening and a fantastic weekend, and we will see you next week.